Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video I wanted to discuss one of the upcoming changes to Ninja and how it could possibly shape changes to other jobs in the coming months and years in Final Fantasy XIV. Now, during one of my daily streams over on Twitch, the impending changes to the Ninja job came up as a topic for the umpteenth time. This time we were discussing how the changes to Bunshin in particular might interact with the new 15-second trick attack window after the job's adjustments in patch 5.1. For those not keeping up with the changes, Bunshin will have its effect duration changed. Currently, it lasts for 15 seconds upon activation. After patch 5.1, it will instead last for 5 weapon skills, giving players a bit more freedom to do things such as cast ninjutsu during the ability's duration without losing a weapon skill altogether. Now, while we are still unsure on how this will pan out for Ninja in the long run, the stream discussion innocently brought up a curious question. What if this change was incorporated into other jobs? At first I wondered how that would even work. It just seemed like it was made for Ninja and that I couldn't really apply it to anything else. But I quickly began to see several jobs that could see this kind of change in the future. Mind you, I'm not saying that the jobs I'm about to list in this video would be better off with a change like this. I'm not suggesting that. That being said, should this design for Ninja be successful, the development team has a history of incorporating well-received adjustments on one part of the game to other aspects of the game, and in the case of a job change, that really wouldn't be surprising to see something like this utilized on other jobs. So what other jobs could benefit from changing a personal buff from a set duration to instead lasting for a set number of attacks? Let's call it like a charged buff or something. Well, the chat initially got down this rabbit hole by somebody suggesting that Blood Weapon could be changed to this for Dark Knight, making it simply several weapon skills instead of the 10-second duration. Others present at the time seemed to meet that with mixed emotions, preferring instead maybe just re-adding the haste it had in prior expansions, make it stand out a little bit more. So while people were kind of lukewarm on Dark Knight, the discussion took a big turn when we started talking about another job that I think is probably one of the most prime candidates for a change like this in the future: Machinist. So for pretty much forever, Machinist has been a job that has been pretty rough for anyone with a moderate to high ping, something that Ninja changes are looking to fix as well. This is due to its rapid fire mechanic from previous expansions, which has now been baked into the new Hypercharge. During your Hypercharge window, heat blasts are made available at a 1.5 second global cooldown. For anyone with moderate ping, global cooldown clipping can cause players to feel like this entire window is clunky, and sometimes even cause them to outright lose heat blasts altogether. It's been a big pain point that Machinist players and non-players that have decent ping are just saying they would like to see a change. So, what if Hypercharge were to instead give the player 5 charges of Heat Blast? Even if at the same global cooldown it is now, it would ensure players are always able to use all 5 Heat Blasts, which would have positive repercussions on a high ping wildfire usage, and ensures it's always possible to benefit from the cooldown reduction of Gauss Round and Ricochet, so long as the charges aren't maxed out. It does definitely come with some other implications outside of this narrow scope, and I think that's something we'll touch on a little bit later, but this is one job I really wouldn't be surprised to see them take this approach on. Another job that got brought up was actually Monk and Perfect Balance. Currently, monks look to achieve 6 global cooldowns in their Perfect Balance window, requiring a set amount of skill speed along with Grease Lightning 4 to achieve comfortably. What if Perfect Balance just had 6 charges instead? Or some people even said 5 charges again, but I think monks want 6 charges, so let's be real. It would become a more comfortable and consistent skill, and this rabbit hole just kept going. We started breaking down almost every individual job, what their buff windows meant to them, if it was possible to change with this system, and would it even be beneficial? Now, I could spend another 20 minutes talking about that, but as we were talking about those other jobs, we started to notice some caveats in this design choice. Now, one of the things we noticed was as we were diving into talking about Monk and the other jobs is that we did encounter our first concern was skill speed. Now, right now, several jobs achieve just enough skill speed to reach a threshold such as the 6 global cooldown Perfect Balance and then abandon the stat altogether. Tanks notoriously look for a 2.38 global cooldown to comfortably do all of their burst windows. Now, if that threshold was no longer a concern for one or multiples of the jobs, the stat would either have to be adequately applied to other aspects of the jobs it was previously assisting, or risk further descent into uselessness, as many people don't really like skill speed as a stat right now. As a matter of fact, as I'm even reading this to say to you, I'm thinking about the tank role. What if there was a tank that benefited from these weapon charge changes, but one that didn't? Then you'd still need the 2.38 global cooldown, but one job wouldn't be using it for the intended reason. Does that further divide the amount of gear sets that a tank needs to worry about? Or an omni tank, I should say, or does it just kind of say, that's just how it is, man? Then another thing came up. What if other jobs that might not currently find a charged feature as useful were readjusted to fit this charge system? An example presented during my chat was Warrior's Inner Release. Somebody said, oh, you couldn't do it for that because of the 2 skills that go along with it. But what if Inner Release was changed to a consistent 5 charges instead of the 10-second duration? Now this, of course, would mean abandoning the 0 gauge cost of Onslaught and Upheaval, so it couldn't just be changed as is. I brought up that they have to have the technology to make it so that while you have these charges, they could also remove the cost for Onslaught and Upheaval. That seems like something that should be achievable without really having to stretch your brain too much. But other people suggested that that might be an opportune time to just disconnect Onslaught from the Beast Gauge altogether. Warriors aren't really a big fan of their only gap closer costing Beast Gauge and being tied to it, so that would be something Warriors might welcome. But then you have to consider Upheaval. Does it still cost Beast Gauge? Do they make that change that we mentioned earlier to that? Does it get changed altogether? That's another question, and it's a big question because if jobs were to start changing to fit in this new system, that is something they would all have to consider. What buffs now could be changed that would have to cause other abilities to be changed on that job? And then one last thing came up discussion-wise, the skill ceiling in Final Fantasy XIV. Now, Final Fantasy XIV has done many things in recent years to try and close the gap between the skill floor of a job and that same job skill ceiling. This has led to streamlining certain abilities, charge systems, actions transforming into other actions under certain conditions or as you level, etc., etc. This charged buff system would definitely fall in line with that as another attempt to close the gap. This, of course, leads to some division amongst community members about whether or not this is healthy for the game. Players who generally perform poorly at certain job mechanics might find this change refreshing for the job they currently play, or open up interest in new jobs altogether, while veteran players might find another element of skill expression vanishing before them. My personal opinion, I really don't know how to judge it. I haven't even gotten to try Bunshin yet because patch 5.1 is not out as of the recording of this video. I think it's possible it could raise the skill ceiling even depending on how long the charges last. If these charges were to last indefinitely until used, it might open up some interesting early uses of skills to reduce a buff activation around a burst timing. For example, let's say that Machinist, let's say if activating Hypercharge gave you the 5 Heat Blast charges, and those lasted indefinitely until you used 5 Heat Blasts. Well, then all of a sudden, you can pop 2 of those and save them up and use them for a specific burst window. Obviously, all of those can't fit inside a Wildfire, but, creative uses like that start popping up, and that can further increase the skill gap between players. I'm not saying that's what they would do, I'm just kind of listing it as a kind of a lazy example, I suppose. Now, if they are finite in time, but only slightly more than the buffs currently last, it likely comes closer to just being streamlined. So again, we really need more information, more hands-on with it. Anyway, these are just a few thoughts that came up on my live stream today, and I wanted to make a video seeing what you all thought about it. What about you? Do you think these changes are the beginning of something we'll see more in Final Fantasy XIV? Is this a one-off thing for ninjas? Do you actually even want this for other jobs? And if you do, are there other jobs you could think could use this change, even if you have to adjust a few abilities to get it to work? Let me know in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned. We'll be bringing you all the patch 5.1 stuff you need right here on the channel. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next one, and until then, take care.